Welcome to the University of Michigan Dentistry Podcast Series, promoting oral health care worldwide.
For your waxing procedures in this laboratory, you will be expected to have the following items. One is a bench top cover, which is a white oilcloth cover, 18 inches by 22 inches, and that must be placed on the bench top at all times. It's to protect the bench top and also to collect the wax. Your Visidont Typodont, which will be your patient for these procedures, a rubber bowl with some water in it, your Bunsen burner, your striker to light the Bunsen burner, a piece of nylon to polish the wax carvings that you will be doing, the 4 natural teeth that you will be waxing from, some wax, some bulk cotton, package with the 4 prepared teeth in it, and these instruments: a mouth mirror, cotton pliers, your Cowhorn Explorer, your perioprobe, number 3 PK Thomas, your number 5C cleoid discoid, and you can see the cleoid point there, your number 1 PK Thomas waxing instrument, and your number 7 wax spatula. We call this a beaver tail because that's what it looks like. Number 2 pencil, and your Visidont punch to remove the teeth with. All right, let us go to the Visidont and let me show you how to remove these teeth. Remove my instruments out of the way here. You will be waxing 4 teeth. Maxillary right central incisor, number 8. Number 14, a maxillary left first molar. Number 21, mandibular left first premolar. And number 30, a mandibular right first molar. Let us remove the maxillary teeth first. Loosen the brass screw on the top of the Visidont and remove the maxillary arch. Take your punch and remove number 8. Take the prepared tooth that looks like this, which is a preparation for a full crown, and this is the one that you will be waxing back, and insert it in that slot. Press it down so that it locks. To check and make sure that it has locked, you have a plastic collar that attaches to each one of the keys. You must snap it down over that pin. Let us go to number 14 and remove number 14. Number 14 has been prepared with what we call a Class 2 restoration. You will be waxing back the mesial surface and the occlusal surface of this tooth. And you insert that into that slot. Again, check the plastic collar and make sure that it snaps down over that pin. Then you reattach this to the Visitant by merely screwing it back on. To remove the mandibular portion of this Visitant, you take the wing nut in front and merely unscrew that. This removes the key and the base slips out. Number 21 is to be removed, so again, you punch out number 21. And you replace it with the tooth that looks just like it. It has cavity preparation on the facial or buccal surface, and we call that a class 5. Insert it in. Again, check and make sure that the pin is securely locked by the collar. The last tooth is number 30. Punch out number 30. And number 30 has been prepared, what we call a class 1 preparation. You will be waxing back just the occlusal surface of this tooth. You insert that in, force it down, and again, check and make sure the pin is securely locked by that plastic collar. Now, to replace this base, there are two things that you have got to be very careful of. You slip the base back in the Visitant and you lift the key. Now, let me see if I can show you this. This key has a slot in it. Now, if you screw the nut down while that upper portion is in this position, you are going to cause damage to the base. You have to be very, very careful that this black portion is over that slot. And you screw it down. Now, I would like your instructors to check and make sure that you have these prepared teeth in their proper place and that you have that key lock screwed back correctly. I would like you to begin using these instruments by practicing wax manipulation on your thumbnail. For this exercise, you will need a heat source, some bulk cotton, your waxing instruments, a piece of wax, and your bench cover. Now for the studio up here, we are using a blue bench cover, but you will have your white bench cover. The two instruments that I am holding in my hand are your two wax carrying instruments. The one on the top of the screen is the P.K. Thomas number 1. The one on the bottom is your number 7 wax spatula. Now the two ends that you see now are the narrow end of the P.K. Thomas number 1 and the narrow end of the wax spatula. These, of course, would carry small increments of wax. At the other end, you have the larger end of the P.K. Thomas number 1 and the large end of the wax spatula. And by the shape, you will be carrying more wax with these instruments. How do we hold an instrument? We call this a modified pen grasp. And this is how you will be holding this instrument for these procedures. And you will also be holding your instrument much the same way for your clinical procedures. Now this hand must be stabilized, and we call this a fulcrum. This merely means that you are resting your hand on a surface for stability and for maximum control. Now, along with practicing a waxing for this exercise, I would also like you to practice holding the instrument correctly and also fulcruming it. I don't want to see you waxing out like this. This hand has got to be stabilized on something, either the bench top or on your hand. All right, let's begin waxing on your thumbnail. Now for the heat source up here in the studio, I will be using an alcohol lamp. And I am also quite partial to the small end of the P.K. Thomas number 1, so I will be using that. Now to heat this instrument, you place the heat in the curve of the instrument, not out here on the tip, but the flame goes right there on the curve. And you also place that heated curve into the wax, like so. Place the instrument in the heat to the wax, back to the heat, and then onto your thumbnail. You notice that my hand is stabilized, and in order to make this work, your heat source and the wax have got to be very close to the object that you are waxing. And then back to the thumbnail. Now I wasn't hot enough on that. And if it is too hot, you're going to burn yourself. Back to the wax, back to the heat source, and then onto your thumbnail. Now, wax manipulation with this instrument is quite similar to drawing with a pencil. If you want to extend that, you merely hold the instrument. You'll also notice that the wax will follow the heat. And remember to use that fulcrum. You should also have a piece of cotton close by. And you should get in the habit of wiping your instrument often to clean it off of any excess wax. Now I would like you to continue waxing. I have seen students write their name with wax. I have seen them make animals. But I would like you to practice using all four ends of these instruments so that you notice how much wax these instruments will carry. Remember, hold the instrument properly in the modified pen grasp. Always fulcrum the instrument close to the area that you're working on, and wipe your instrument often. Okay, begin practicing now. Today we will begin waxing number 8, which is the maxillary right central incisor. I want you to take your punch and remove number 8. I'd like you to take your number 2 pencil and mark the boundary or the margin or the collar, whichever you want to call this, of this tooth. Now I would like your instructors to help you with this and to also check it. The importance of this pencil line is that no wax must be placed apical of this line. I would like your instructors to check this now. To begin waxing this tooth, you should have a maxillary central incisor to wax from, and you should also have your drawings out that you have completed and have been checked. While the tooth is still in your hand, take one of your wax carrying instruments, heat it, place it in the wax, heat it, and then build out the cervical margin next to the collar. Remember your fulcrum. And the heat source and the wax should be in close proximity to this tooth that you are waxing on. The wax is too hot. Hold it above the tooth for a few minutes until it cools down. Should be a few seconds. When you think you have the wax flush with the collar, remember to wipe your instrument. And I want you to take your Cowhorn Explorer and very lightly check the margin. It seems to be that you have too much wax in one spot, as I have there. Take one of your wax carving instruments, or the one that I like to use is the narrow end of the beaver tail, and reduce it. And to make it flush, you put a portion of the instrument on the tooth itself, okay, that feels pretty flush to me. At this point, let's return the tooth to the visitant. Make sure you get the facial side out, and make sure you snap the collar over the pin. Now, for ease in manipulating this, let us remove the maxillary portion. Now, what I am going to do now is build up the labial height of contour, which occurs in the cervical 1/3. And then the mesial height of contour. And you must do this by putting very thin layers of wax. All right, let's go over to the distal height of contour. And while the tooth is still in the visitant, let's work on the incisor-cervical length. Looking at our natural tooth, we know this mesio-incisal angle is a very sharp right angle. The disto-incisal angle is rounded. needs to be a little bit longer on the mesial. Now, let's check for the cervical height of contour. The contact area on the mesial. A little bit more is necessary here on the distal. When you have that blocked in, turn the cast and we'll mark in the lingual height of contour, which will be the cingulum. And for this exercise, I would like the cingulum to be placed toward the distal. And also on the lingual surface, begin very small increments of wax. To cover the core of the prepared tooth. Okay, we will stop the tape right here and let you work in these 4 heights of contour. After you have the 4 heights of contour blocked in, look at your natural tooth, and the next step will be the line angles. The mesiolabial line angle is very long. The next one would be the distolabial line angle. The mesiolingual line angle and the distolingual line angle. To do this, I think it would be easier to remove the tooth from the visodont. So very quickly, let's do that. Again, make sure that you have the labial side up. And for this, you might like to use the larger end of the P.K. Thomas or your beaver tail. And don't forget your fulcrum. Distolabial line angle. When you have that blocked in, turn the tooth around, block in the mesiolingual line angle, and the distolingual line angle. This time you might have a void on the distal surface. Fill that in. If you elect to change the end of your instrument, as I wish to do now, get in the habit of wiping the instrument free of the excess wax. Go to the mesial surface and wax in the void there. Again, before placing your instrument down, be sure to wipe off the excess wax. At this time, pick up the natural tooth and take a look at the anatomy of the natural tooth and the anatomy of the tooth that you've just finished waxing. Okay, let's wax up to that point now. It's time to place this wax pattern back into the Visiodont. Now let me show you a trick so that you won't mash the wax pattern. Take a piece of cotton, dip it in your cold water, and wring out some of the excess. Place it on either side of the wax pattern and insert it into the Visiodont. And push it in. By using the cold water against the softened wax, you won't break the wax from the pattern. With the tooth now placed, you can begin the final steps of adding wax. And I have a void there on the labial surface. And for this, I think I will use the large end of the beaver tail. Heat source close by. Again with the fulcrum. the larger instrument, it holds the heat longer. All right, go to the lingual surface. And right now I see that I have too much wax in the lingual fossa. Merely heat your instrument and remove some of the wax. This time, let's check the contours. On the lingual, the cingulum is toward the distal, and there's too much mass, so I will have to reduce that somewhat. We have the mesial marginal ridge and the distal marginal ridge and the lingual fossa, and that must also be reduced. On the labial, contacts in the proper position. Now to check the labial height of contour, turn it on its side, and there has to be some wax removed right in here. This point, pick up the small end of your beaver tail, number 7, wax spatula, and we begin reducing the wax. Now this is a hard inlay wax, and to not get ridges in it as you are carving this back, you definitely need to use a very strong fulcrum. Now, we have a height of contour going from the mesial to the distal. We have a height of contour from the incisal to the cervical. And you should be checking your natural tooth. So it's a carving back process. Okay, begin reducing the tooth. And make sure that you check your heights of contour in all planes as you do this wax reduction procedure. After you have finished carving or reducing the wax, check the heights of contour with your natural tooth and also with the adjacent tooth, which is number 9. What we would like this tooth to look like, similar to number 9, but with the anatomy of the natural tooth. The mesiodistal dimension, the height of contour from the incisal to the cervical, the height of contour on the labial surface in the cervical 1/3, On the lingual, we want the distal marginal ridge to be the same height as the mesial marginal ridge of number 7, and the mesial marginal ridge to be the same height as the mesial marginal ridge of number 9. The cingulum height of contour, the same as number 9, but with the cingulum placed over to the distal. An incisal ridge and the lingual fossa. Your beaver tail end is good for marking in the lingual fossa. Now, if you have wax shavings, if you go down to a 5 and 10 store and get an inexpensive paintbrush, you can use that to remove the wax shavings. At this time, pick up your Explorer and check the margins and the contour interproximally. On the lingual, and then from the labial. Now, to polish this tooth before your final check-in, you can take a small piece of cotton and wet it. Take your cotton forceps This is also good for picking up little pieces of wax. Then if you take a nylon and polish it down, you'll get a very high luster to that wax. You were given a list of the waxing criteria for this tooth. If you have met each one of the 16 criteria, you are ready to have this tooth checked in. For this exercise, you will be waxing number 21, a mandibular left first premolar. This is a class 5 cavity preparation. I think this would be easier if you remove the lower base from the Visiodont. Remove number 21. And with your number 2 pencil, mark in the boundary. And you're going to need a secure fulcrum to do this. When you have the boundary marked in, I would like you to have your instructors check it. Before you begin waxing this tooth, you should check the heights of contour on a real mandibular first premolar. You have a mesio-distal height of contour in that cervical third. You also have an occlusal cervical height of contour. And I want both of these heights of contour to be replaced with wax in this Class 5 cavity preparation. Select a waxing instrument, heat it, place it in the wax, and begin filling in the cavity preparation. Remember your height of contour and remember your fulcrum. Thin increments of wax. And no wax beyond that marked boundary. Remember to wipe your instrument. Now, to reduce the bulk, I would suggest using the flat end of your beaver tail instrument. Now, to maintain the proper height of contour, the instrument should be placed on the tooth surface and on the wax simultaneously. All right, continue waxing that tooth. Before you have number 21 checked in, replace the base on the Visitant and check your key lock to make sure it is in the proper position. For this Class 5 preparation, we will be checking to make sure there is no wax beyond the marked boundary. We will be checking two heights of contour: your mesiodistal height of contour and your occlusal cervical height of contour. I would like you to take your Cowhorn Explorer and very lightly feel the margins between the tooth and the wax. It should be smooth with no bumps or jumps between the wax or the tooth. We will also be looking to see if it has been polished, and again we will be checking for the proper placement of the key lock. When you have met these criteria, please have your instructors check out this tooth.
You've been listening to a presentation from the University of Michigan School of Dentistry, which is dedicated to supporting open learning and open educational resources. This recording is licensed under the Creative Commons. It may be reused and redistributed for nonprofit use. Please attribute materials to the University of Michigan School of Dentistry and redistribute under this same license. For more information on how this and other University of Michigan School of Dentistry recordings may be used, visit www.dent.umich.edu/license.